What would you give to not have your kids or stepkids argue, fight, or resist going to bed every night? I remember when our kids were young, there were times when it seemed to take forever to get them to go to bed, let alone fall asleep. Bedtime meant alone time for me and my husband, not to mention the health benefits for our kids of having enough sleep. On today's podcast, I'm talking with Brooke Picard, a writer, musician, and early childhood educator who created the Sleepy Time Club, which makes bedtime simple for families, helping parents reclaim their evening. Hi, I'm Claudette Chenevert, wife, mom, stepmom, and now grandmom. When I first became a stepmother 30 plus years ago, I had no idea how hard being a stepmom was going to be. When I first became a stepmother 30 plus years ago, I had no idea how hard being a stepmom was going to be. I had no one to turn to, ask for help or advice. I was alone on my journey. And remember, back then, there was no such thing as Facebook, Instagram, or even Google to ask questions like, what's my role as a stepmom? Who comes first, my partner or the kids? Is it okay to not like my stepkids? How do I deal with a challenging ex? I feel so much like an outsider in my own home. What can I do? And although we now have access to a lot of information online, let me say, not all of it is helpful or wise. Welcome to my podcast, where I share my best tips and advice along with moments of wisdom on what you can do to build and create stronger and healthier stepfamilies, one step at a time. So let's get started. So I'm so glad to have you here, Brooke, and to talk about, your program and your books on Sleepy Time Club and sleep, because it's such an important topic. And so I want to know more about how you got started in doing this kind of work.
I'm really delighted to be here too. I'm such a fan of your coaching and your podcast. And so I'm really honored to be here. I worked as an early childhood music specialist and an early childhood educator for years and learned a lot. I did it in schools, I did it in Head Start and homeless shelters, I did it in posh living rooms, and just always found that the communication between parents and children through music and rhythm is so powerful and a memory that can never go away. And also part of my teaching philosophy is based in critical pedagogy. So we are all transformed in the education process, teacher and students. And I'm all about making myself obsolete as a teacher. Like, I want you to take this and run with it and know that for your child, you have the most beautiful voice that there is, right? So fast forward to when my child outgrew her bedtime routine, and she was pretty old. She was like 12. We were still reading in bed and saying a certain prayer and all that kind of stuff. I started losing my sleep mojo. I couldn't, lost it. And I never connected the dots until after I visited a whole bunch of doctors, hoping they'd give me a pill, which I'm very grateful they didn't. They just gave me the same advice, be consistent about going to bed, be consistent about getting up, start a ritual before you go to sleep, get the tech, all those tips. And they were right. I mean, I really got my bedtime routine down as a moment of self-care so strongly that in May of this year, I was in the hospital overnight for observation for my heart. I'm fine. It was just like a momentary thing. But I told my husband exactly what I needed. I said, I need my sleeping mask, I need my MP3 player, and I need a blanket that's heavy. And we'll be good. And I slept all night in the hospital in the ER room.
Wow.
I know, with tubes all over my body. Wow. So I can tell you that the sort of conditioning and practice work. Not 100% of the time, but it's certainly better to be conditioned with your own habits and empowered with your own habits than it is to rely on pills and get conditioned to a pill. as I was solving my sleep problem, the two worlds dovetailed. And I thought, what if we gave, because that was another issue I had, was a lot of parents would say, I don't know what to do. They just have a lot of trouble getting a bedtime plan together. Or if they pick a book, they have the child pick the book, which makes the child feel empowered and is important for bedtime, if they're being resistant. And the child will pick like, let's run around the room and go crazy kind of book, which is really not the way you want to go to sleep. So I created these bedtime kits. I thought, what if bedtime comes around every single night. You cannot multitask it. It is not like eating a piece of pizza in the car going to band practice, and we know how important dinners are, but they're not a reality for a lot of families, right? But you do have to do bedtime. And what if we got kids in this wonderful habit and built memories every single night? And what if it didn't take much time?
That would be amazing, right? Like not having to fight, struggle, kick and scream, or having like kids kicking and screaming about bedtime and giving all these excuses. That's what I love about you have these amazing books, the Sleepy Time Club Stars, and then this one, the Blueprint, the Bedtime Blueprint, and then you have the Bedtime Journal. These are amazing books where for people who are not used to having a routine or knowing what to do, these are great go-to books, right?
Thank you. Thank you. And you're all about boundaries and contracts. And
exactly.
Bedtime rituals are just as important as morning rituals. I would say it's even more important because it sets you up for sleep as well as for a better next day. And then all the books, except for the Bedtime Blueprint, because that's more of a how-to, come with a recording. So the idea is you go through, the books give you a journey to sleep. And on those nights when the child is resistant or you don't have much time, you can have them pick 2 or 3 things so they feel in control. You're still connecting, but you leave behind the recording, stream it, get the tech out of the bedroom, and then say, that's it. We're done for the night. And these stories will put you to sleep now.
And there's one thing you mentioned, and we've talked about this before, you and I, is that you are strongly opposed to having electronics in the bedroom, right?
Yeah. And I'm not alone in that.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about it. Why?
Well, I'm a disciple of the sleep experts. I'm really, I'm a musician, writer, storyteller who does love bedtime as a great habit. But if you have a TV in the bedroom, the chances that your child will be obese increase exponentially. The blue light from any electronic device, even an e-reader, destroys melatonin almost immediately. That's from Dr. Robert Rosenberg, who's a great advisor, sleep expert, medical expert. It's just this habit. I was realizing I got in the habit of doing up to an hour before bed watching TV lately because there's so many great miniseries.
Yeah.
Netflix, and then I stopped because I was going to bed with images of Tony Shalhoub in my head rather than, and as much as I love him, I need to have my own images, my own memories, these things from my family, but my books, better things than that. We really want our kids to be strong and not have all their stimulation external. We really need that internal strengthening. And TV doesn't, no one watches TV on a sunny afternoon for a couple of hours and then goes like, wow, that felt great. Bedtime is there, keep the electronics out for your health's sake. And here's the other scary thing. You've got to get the kids, particularly with smartphones now, you've got to get them in the habit of, and you talk about that, setting up a contract for electronics.
Yep.
You got to get them out of the bedroom because I think it's 20%, it may be even 25% of college students are taking their phones to bed and texting in their sleep and not remembering it.
Wow.
So you want to get them in, that's crazy. And there are stories of people who bought things on the internet, adults.
Wow.
In their sleep.
That's incredible. Yeah, I had not heard of that. So that is scary. Yeah. And I will have to admit, I have my phone near my bed because it's our alarm clock, it's our go-to for anything, which is terrible. And I know my sleep has suffered because of it. And in a small space where you don't have a lot of room, like in the bedroom, the phone is like really near your head. And so
Yeah.
I'm feeling the lack of or the inability to fall asleep. I can imagine little kids if they have, or teenagers that have phones in their rooms and they're texting, or we have all these gadgets in our rooms. Everything is a gadget that is attached to the internet somehow. If these are in the bedroom, it's preventing all of us from having adequate sleep, right?
Yeah, yeah. An adequate just sort of centering time and being ourselves. There's a really interesting documentary called Like about social media and what it does to young people's psyches and posting things to be liked and deleting them if they're not liked. And it's this whole self-image thing. We need to just reclaim our connections to each other.
All of this is attached to having great sleep, right? Because if we don't have enough sleep, we can't think properly. We can't process our emotions. We take everything out of context. I mean, whether no matter who you are, whether you're a child or an adult, I mean, we know sleep even more so now than ever before. Sleep is critical for our well-being and our physical and mental health, right? And
Yeah,
so how can we help our children? I mean, it needs to start with us, right, as adults.
it really does. And what I do with the Sleepy Time Club bedtime kits is just, and we can talk about that later, is just give people a plan. Because if you run up to that bedtime hour without knowing what you're going to do and just sort of letting it go, it's not going to happen. What we can do as adults is we can model. I would talk with the kids about the importance of reading and meditation or journaling versus television and gadgets and say, I know I've been bad. I know so I'm going to turn the TV off 2 hours before bed. I'm going to join you. We're good. What's the best way to put our smartphones if you have children old enough to have smartphones? How can we put them in a family parking lot? How can we design that together? And ask their input for that because they love being part of the planning, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing is we can model, offer their input, respect our own bedtime. I mean, it doesn't have to take that much effort. I mean, I would just start knowing how many hours of sleep everybody needs by age. And I have a worksheet for that and also a done for you bedtime chart that has all ages, all wake up hours, all night hours that tells you that I've added bedtime in it. Here's 15 minutes before lights out. Just start doing it.
Yeah, in your bedtime blueprint, I love that you share. There's a place where it talks about how much sleep you need and when you get up and when to start tuning out, just calming down in for when bedtime is ready, right? And it was like, oh wow, okay, so this is a great plan. You're actually telling people or telling us like this is how much time you need to prepare to calm down so you can go to sleep. I mean, it would be good for us adults as well. Like you were talking about modeling, right? And it's like anything in life, we need to be planning. We've sort of taken for granted that why would I plan for sleep? It's a normal thing.
Yeah.
But in our world, in today's world, we are so go, go, go and on adrenaline all the time, impacted by sound and noise everywhere that our brain is forgetting, or we're not telling our brain to shut down and calm down before you're going to bed. Right?
Yeah, and the ambient light, the constant light exposure around us also affects us because we've only had electric light for a minuscule part of our development, and it's everywhere. And it tricks our circadian rhythm system. We don't, one of the other easy things to do is get out in sunlight as early in the day as possible. Dim the lights at night if you do have lights on, and that's just slow down, because when I suggest this to an audience, I get huge groans, but I go, like, one of my favorite ways to reboot my sleep when I'm getting in bad habits, which we all do, the temptation is everywhere. So you have to continually just go back to it and practice and figure out what you need. And it's going to change. Your sleep needs will change according to the seasons. I'm finding I'm needing 9 hours this time of year, not 7, but 9. But then in spring and summer, I'm good with 7, never below that. So we need to get out in sunlight. We need to acknowledge that and the bigger rhythms of ourselves and our lives.
So I found it interesting that you just mentioned that, in the wintertime in the wintertime we need, or you need more sleep, and in the summertime a little less. And it's interesting how it goes with how much light we have during the day and how dark it gets at night, right? And our body will go with the flow of the seasons if we listen to it, right?
Yes, that is so true. And that's where I was going with this is where people groan. Is one of my favorite ways to reboot my sleep is to go camping.
Ah, yes.
And everyone's like, oh no, don't make me go camping. But when don't have a lot of electronics and just sit there with a fire and just see how, just 2 nights, see how it works.
That is so true. My husband and I, we RV a lot, and our best moments is when it's super dark in the campground. Not all campgrounds are as dark as we like, but that's how it is. But when you're sitting outside and just looking at the fire,
oh yeah,
it's like just you're calming down instantly. And kids instinctively know this. Like, I have 7 grandkids, so if they're around us, they'll enjoy watching either a fireplace or a fire outside, and they just calm down and be one with nature. They don't need all those gadgets and electronics. So if we allow them to be able to do those fun things, like connect with nature, I think we're giving them back the power of being able to sleep more and enjoy a better quality of life.
I totally with you. There's something so magic about a fire and a family and friends around it, and just hearing each other or sitting in silence. I've heard a lot of children say the same thing. Some of our best memories aren't those special big, have tons of fun. It's tons of fun. Our memories are just sitting on a dock with a fishing rod with someone we love, or reading a book together.
That's one of the things you're about, right? Is connecting our children, spending quality time with our children at the end of the day. And this is where your bedtime journal comes in, right? Where at the end of the day, you have like a series of questions. So tell us a little bit more about how this came about.
I've found great personal transformation in writing things down. And also the questions that I ask are based on a non-denominational, polydenominational prayer that my daughter and I would say every night, which we got from the God Squad, which there are 4 things you ask of higher power, spirit, God, every day. And one is, wow, like what's in the world that's amazing? And I still remember my daughter said this for like 3 months. She said, wow, for the people we haven't even met yet.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that, and you learn things about your child that you would never know, right? It's sort of, the other way I like to learn things about kids is put them in the back of the car and listen to them talk, because they think you can't hear them. Great way to get to know your queen. But so, wow, this journal starts with a little poem. So that's like a tiny little bedtime story. Like, let's say you only have 7 minutes, less than 10. And you're really listening to your child with this. I say thank you for, that's your gratitude practice. I say wow about, tomorrow I am looking forward to. So you want to look forward to something so you have a really solid reason to sleep. So you're ready for it, right? I send light and peace to. And then my starlight wish is, because you got to have a wish, right?
Yes, of course.
So those are just really simple questions to ask to hear from your child. And if you have, I've had some people say, well, my child isn't old enough to write. Well, even if your child's old enough to write, make them dictate to you. Because again, they're in a position of control, of power, of being the boss, and they don't get that a lot. And this time they're dictating to you what's really important to them. And how great is that to have collected those memories?
Yeah.
There's also the poems and the bedtime thoughts, bedtime affirmations are all recorded. So that would be another thing you could stream behind and sort of like, instead of going to the, the Insight Timer app, which I love, don't get me wrong. I've got like a couple of meditations and a story on there, but again, that's tech in the bedroom. You can just sort of stream it in a Bluetooth speaker and they can really think positive thoughts about sleep and how good it is and how it's a chance to be free and they did their best.
Yes.
So that's the idea of the journal.
And what I was going to say is regarding the journal is, even if your child can't write, they can color, they can do stick figures. I mean, it doesn't have to be structured. Children will have a way of expressing themselves, and think of the memories that you go back and then you look back to when they were little. Like, my oldest granddaughter is 16. Well, we used to read to her stories, and we'd read to her stories in French and stories from when we were kids that were important to us. And so we wanted to read stories that she could hear in French, even if she didn't always understood them.
That's wonderful.
And so it was continuing our traditions with her. But she's 16 now, and when we see her, those are some of her most precious moments, is the time that we would all squish in the bed with her and read those stories. And then she would ask us questions. And then we say, okay, we can't be having these long-winded conversations. It's time for bed, as a way of a stretching bedtime. For us, it's a special memory, knowing that we had bedtime was created as a special ritual.
Yeah, that's such a gift that you gave her. And for stretching bedtime, that's where the recording comes in handy. I can't say, but you just listen to this because we just shared that together.
So the recording that you're talking about is in addition to reading the book? Is that what the purpose is?
The purpose is really to leave it behind. It takes us an average of 20 minutes to fall asleep, and each book is about 20 minutes long. And so everything that's in the book, and the book really gives children a journey to sleep. There's a bedtime story in there, but there's also a mindfulness practice called Put the Day to Bed. There is a lullaby, because everyone should know at least one lullaby. And so with each book is a new lullaby. There's American Sign Language, because a little poem with American Sign Language in it, because when I was teaching early childhood, I knew how important ASL was for kids. It was such a great way to communicate. And for children maybe with sensory issues or on the spectrum, they can maybe they can model together. You can really share those words. But when my daughter was born, I was like, how do I fit this into the day? It seems so random. I can do please and thank you, but so I thought, what if we had a poem every night that we learn, and then the next month you get a new poem with a different bedtime kit, and so your vocabulary would grow and grow, and so would the memories. So then the idea is all of those steps along the journey. There's like 3 songs, a poem with gentle touch, because just like with your granddaughter cuddling in the bed and sharing those memories, when we touch our children, they feel safe. They feel it's okay to transition to sleep alone. I'm loved, I'm safe, I'm cared for. So all those things are recorded with the classical guitar at the end, because I think that's a beautiful thing to introduce children to. They don't really get a lot of acoustic music around them, right? So each one has a different classical guitar lullaby. Yeah, that's the recording is to leave behind. And that's why I say the books are about connect, release the day, and reclaim your evening. Because you say, don't get out of bed until the recording's over, and the odds are very good your child will be asleep. And the other purpose of the recording is to kind of comfort busy brain. I mean, we're like a proud ADD family. Everyone has ADD, like the creative kind. We can't stop thinking of stuff. I was reviewing kids' music and kids' story tapes when my daughter was young, and I would leave behind, it was cassette days, which she said, I was terrified it would click off and I'd wake up. But then when we got to DVDs, CDs, she was fine. But she said, if it weren't for those stories kind of giving her something to listen to and soothe her, she'd never have fallen asleep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do parents need to do or to know in order to help their children? I mean, we've talked about the books and the recording, and what is it other than everything we shared? Is there anything else that a parent needs to know or needs to get in order to help their children fall asleep?
Well, I don't think we need any more gadgets. I mean, sound machines are helpful. Blacking out the windows and removing any ambient light is very good. A bedroom that doesn't have TV in it, and if you share a room with someone, just set aside sleep as a special part of the day. Telling your children how wonderful they look when they sleep, how happy they are, how, encouraging that with positive language. Watching your own language about sleep and your sleep habits. Don't proudly say, I only get 5 hours of sleep a night. That's right now, we're hitting a culture where that's not a badge of honor anymore. That's just like you've really got great judgment and you may not be making the best decisions the next day. Just encouraging sleep, watching your own habits, being consistent. It doesn't have to be my book at the bedside, although I'd love that, but something there so that you go like, this is what we do. Being consistent with wake up times and go to bed times is really important, particularly over the holidays. You're not going to miss out that, now and then, but you really can't catch up on sleep, and kids need to know that. I got to interview Dr. Laura Markham, the parenting expert, and she said that sleep was so important in her family that in high school, she had set up the habit early enough in her family that when her daughter was in high school and other people were saying, what are you going to do for the test? I'm pulling an all-nighter. And she goes, I'm just going to do my best and make sure I get enough sleep, because your IQ rises a few points when you have enough sleep. Right? That we need to just know some facts, know that, encourage children, tell them everything sleeps. That's another message in the books. Everything sleeps. Plants sleep. All the animals sleep. No one's awake all the time. We need rest. And then as to the bedtime ritual, the first thing to do is just decide, use that little worksheet, like when your child needs to get up to get ready for school in a reasonable way. And then, do you need time alone in the morning or do you need time alone in the evening? Because the great thing is, because kids and even teens need more sleep than adults, you're going to find at least an hour a day for yourself. Woohoo, right?
Yes.
But then I would add to the ritual a really simple thing, which is, it can get more complicated, but start with something simple, which is a bedtime ritual that you reverse in the morning, or a morning ritual that you reverse at night. The simplest and most obvious is we make the bed. Doesn't have to be perfect, military hospital corners. We just pull it up, get it ready, put the pillows down, and then at night when you turn it down, that's a signal. That's a little signal that it's time to slip under the covers. And we're resting now. Rest is just as important as productivity.
Yeah. So I love that you shared all these amazing tips, and I know I'm going to need to follow on them because making my bed has never been a big thing, but I can see what you shared why it would be an important thing. And I'm a firm believer that in order for our kids to do what we want them to do, we need to model it. I mean, we can't be telling our kids to do one thing and for us to do another. It doesn't work, and it's part of setting healthy boundaries and healthy examples. So if we want our kids to get enough sleep or to do whatever it is we want them to do, we need to be doing it ourselves.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And it's also, it's self-care. If your child's bedtime is the time for you to connect with them and make memories, then your bedtime is your time to connect with yourself or your higher power, and just set your priorities and reflect. I mean, it is an opportunity for self-care. I mean, here's the thing, everyone has a bedtime routine, whether they know it or not. And they just don't all serve sleep. So if you were to take my bedtime routine before I started researching and going to doctors, it was binge watch something until it was too late, probably have one too many glasses of wine, look at the clock, go, oh my gosh, I've got to get up at 6 to walk the dog, get ready for work, get my kid ready for school. I know I'll save time by going to sleep in my dog walking clothes, right? So what does that do? It doesn't send a message to my unconscious, my subconscious, that this is important. You're caring for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. In order to be a good parent for another, you need to parent yourself. You need to take care of yourself. And when you take care of yourself, you're showing your children and everybody else around you that you are also important enough to prioritize your health, your sleep, your well-being, so that you are there to be able to take care of others and to teach them how to take care of themselves as well. Because being a parent is also about helping our children to learn how to take care of themselves so that one day when they leave the home, maybe one day, they can take care of themselves as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And at least it's somewhere. Like, I am watching my child from afar. She's a young adult now. But I know it's somewhere there were years of modeling self-care. And I see hints of that coming out.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me, Brooke, where can my audience find your book, more information about what you do, and maybe even have a conversation about if they need help with their own bedtime routine?
Well, you can go to sleepytimeclub.com, and the first thing you can do is you can get a free guided meditation and printable, which is the Put the Day to Bed mindfulness practice from the fourth bedtime kit star, Clouds. And that way it's recorded, but the real secret sauce is reading it yourself in your own voice, right? So you can take the time, and that's the beginning. That's going to take you less than 5 minutes to really help your child go to sleep. So then you'll get on my mailing list and we can chat, and you can send me an email to brooke@sleepytimeclub.com. I'm happy to send you the done for you bedtime chart if you just need, I can't think anymore, I'm just going to print this out and put it on the refrigerator, So that's where you can find me.
Excellent. And I'll put the details of where to find Brooke and her website and everything else in the show notes below. So make sure to check out Brooke and her Sleepy Time Club packet. It's wonderful. I've looked through it. It's well done. It's great. I love everything you've done with it.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me coming from you. Do I have time to add one more feature that I discovered that I came along with? Most of the language, and I'm working at 100% of the language moving forward, is non-binary. And I did that because I didn't want to keep a spreadsheet of how many times boys were kind and nurturing and and I went, wait, let's just get people used to the non-binary names, non-binary, attitudes and attributes. And then I'm also seeing more and more children of millennials being raised as just whole people. We're not going to divide them up anymore. We can all share all the good things that are usually associated with each gender.
And I thank you for saying that, because I think it's important for us to understand that using binary is something that many of us are going towards, and it's important to be aware of and to practice it. And it may not come naturally to you or to others, but it's something to be mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm learning. I'm constantly being taught by the younger generation about these things.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Brooke. This was wonderful. I enjoyed our conversation. And again, to find out more about Brooke, you can go to sleepytimeclub.com, and I'll share more information about it in the show notes. All right. Thank you. Take care, and bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Claudette.
Well, thanks for listening to this show. I really appreciate it. And I'd love to hear from you. What were some of your takeaways from this episode? What stood out for you? What's one thing you could do today that will make a difference in your life? Improve your relationship with your partner, your stepkids, and who knows, maybe even the ex. And if you'd like to share what you learned, go over to my private Facebook page, Stepmom Supporting Stepmoms. The link will be in the show notes below. And let me know, hey, Claudette, I'd listen to your podcast and I'd love to share my takeaways with you in the group. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And I love sharing my wisdom and knowledge with you. And I look forward to doing it again very soon. So bye for now.